You're listening to the Prepper Recon podcast. For questions, comments, and podcast archives, go to prepperrecon.com. I've personally been buying gold and silver from JM Bullion for over 2 years. They offer the best prices over spot that I can find, and I've never had a problem with an order. If you're looking to trade in some of your fiat paper for real money, check out jmbullion.com today. Ready Made Resources is a trusted name in the prepper community because they've been around for 18 years. They offer great prices on night vision, water filtration, long-term storage food, solar energy components, and provide free technical service. Get ready for an uncertain future at readymaderesources.com. Hey preppers and patriots, this is a recording of my guest appearance on Ladies of the Watch. Enjoy the show.
Good evening and welcome to Ladies of the Watch. Tonight we have a guest host from prepperrecon.com. I don't know if I can say your name or not. Is that kosher?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah, it's pasted all over the front of the, I think, 10 or 11 books I've got out. So,
awesome.
I guess any
awesome.
Operational security I had is pretty much gone with that. So,
okay.
It's Mark Goodwin, yes.
Okay. Yes, and welcome. He's been very kind enough to come and give us a talk for however long it lasts tonight, at least hopefully an hour, because I didn't have a whole lot left after that. But no, Don and I have some things going on later on. But you're here to talk about what tonight?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about preparedness on a budget because, I think one of the things that people do is, especially when they first wake up, is people kind of go into this panic mode and you want to run out and max out the credit card and get all of this stuff because you think that the world's going to end tomorrow. And well, while it might, everybody that's done that so far has lived to regret it. And retrospectively, they would have probably rather, came up with a sensible budget, said, this is how much money I can allocate to prepping, and maybe there's some other areas of my life that I can scale back to sort of help fund that, or maybe there's some other things I can do to add an extra income or something like that to try to do it a little bit more in a sensible fashion. And then for, a lot of times everybody's spouse isn't on board when it comes to prepping. Sometimes it's one person in the marriage that really sees the need to get prepared and the other one doesn't. And money's often a big concern for that. So I'm hoping that maybe we can talk about some things tonight that might help alleviate some of that.
Okay. And that's a really good point. We have had many, well, I can't say many, I have like 4 listeners, but people call in that said, how do you get the spouse online? And, when they're not on board. And the money is an issue because when I first started, I hit that, oh my gosh, I shouldn't say that. I've prepped since I was tiny, before it was prepping. But when I really got scared about it with the last election and all the things that were escalating on Facebook, I did the same thing. I was like, every penny I had went into the prepping because I was so far behind again. And but I've learned in the, interim too, that that's not a valid way to do it. So go ahead. Let's see what you got.
Well, and I think that one of the things that we got to look at when we're talking about preparedness right now, particularly, is what are some of the things that we're preparing for? And I think that one of the bigger risks that we're facing right now is probably another economic downturn. The stock market right now, it's hitting all-time highs. And, we're way past 18,000 now. But a lot of that is being fueled by retirees that have absolutely no business in the stock market right now. And they're having to chase gains to make up for the 0% interest rates that they're getting. Modern portfolio theory would tell people that, as you're getting older, you're taking less and less risk in your portfolio, so that by the time that you retire, you're somewhere around 60 to 70% fixed income products, which is, CDs and government bonds and things of that nature that just have a slow, steady return on it. Well, that was all done with the assumption that you're going to be able to get, 3 to 5% on CDs and bank accounts and government bonds. Well, that's not the case at all.
It's not the case anymore, no.
So what are these people having to do to make up for that income? Well, they're having to buy Apple and Google and Elon, SpaceX or whatever stock, and Elon Musk, he just had another huge, he just blew up Facebook's satellite. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how well his stock's going to be looking, but that's the type of risk that they're taking. They're buying into companies that are blowing up Facebook's satellites. So and when you're if you're 30 years old, that's fine, because you can lose that stock, and it can go to pennies on the dollar, and you can recoup from that. But if you're 70 and you need that income, and now you have to think about, I got to sell my 3-bedroom condo and move into a 1-bedroom, or I got to sell my car and get, a motorcycle or a moped or something, so you have to make real drastic lifestyle, cuts to be able to deal with those types of setbacks.
Absolutely. And I'm kind of the mind, how many times is it actually going to bounce back? I mean, we all kind of prep because we're afraid that there's going to come to a point where we're kind of like Venezuela, maybe not to that extent, but where it's not going to come back. And this is what we have. At least many of the people I know are like that. And that's what I worry about. My dad is one of the elderly retirees that you're talking about, and I watch them scramble all the time, and it's really painful.
Yeah, and they were sold this idea that, you work hard and you save your money and you stick it in the bank, or you stick it in government bonds or CDs or whatever, and you'll be able to live on the interest. And that's not happening for them, is it?
Right. No.
And you mentioned Venezuela. And that's where socialism ends. That's what happens. And they've now, pretty much hunted dogs and cats to extinction. And they're eating zoo animals.
Right.
And it sounds like some post-apocalyptic parody movie, but it's not.
Right.
It's reality. That's what's really happening. And this is, 6 months ago, you saw them hijacking food delivery trucks. And what were they doing?
Right.
You'd see 20 or 30. You didn't see any of this on the mainstream media, but I'm sure most of your listeners are probably watching a lot of alternative news.
Oh yeah, we've all seen it. We talked about it.
And get the footage that the people are taking themselves in Venezuela and putting it up on YouTube. But you'll see a gang of 40, 50 people hijack a truck full of food, and they're carting off 20-pound bags of rice. And they've just got they just risked their life for a 20-pound bag of rice. And they've got the biggest smile on their face because they know that they're going to eat tonight. They're going to be able to feed their children. And they're going to still have some food tomorrow because they have a 20-pound bag of rice. And you know what that 20-pound bag of rice costs at Walmart right now? It's like $8.
Right.
And that will feed an adult person for about 10 days. It'll keep you alive for about 10 days for $8. And, if these people would have had the forethought to be able to do that and store it away, but now in Venezuela, guess what? It's illegal to store food. You're not allowed to. But that's where socialism ends up.
That's where they're supposed to be shared for the common good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it levels the playing field because it brings everybody down to absolute total poverty, to the lowest common denominator. That's how you level the playing field. It doesn't bring everybody up. When they vote for the socialist candidate, that's what they think is going to happen. That everybody's going to get elevated to the 1%, but that's not how it works. And the 1% is still in Venezuela. And if we put another socialist in office here,
it's going to happen the same way.
That's exactly what's going to happen. And and how many generations are we from communism? Because we saw the support that Bernie Sanders got. And, and that's the young people.
Jelly. And that's all the young people. That's what I was going to say.
And so
they're
as they grow
all
older.
All about free stuff and sharing, and, we're almost back to like the 70s hippie movement.
Yeah. We just watched a documentary. It's on YouTube. It's called China: A Century of Revolution, and it was all from the time Mao started in the 1920s all the way through his death, and Deng Xiaoping after Mao's death, and so it covered that entire 100-year period, and it's just there was some just asinine stuff going on, especially with Mao, of him telling everybody to quit farming and start making steel. And well, these people don't have any. They didn't have any tools to make steel, and they're just melting down like their silverware and stuff, because that's what they think that the chairman wants. And they're building these little smelters out of like clay. And so they melt down everything they have a utility, and they're going to try to catch up with the Americans by that. I mean, it's just completely asinine. And so what ended up happening is 20 million people starved to death because everybody quit farming and started making steel pots in their backyard by melting down their silverware and their farming utensils, their hoes and their rakes and all of that. They're melting that stuff down to make these pots, and then the pots are so poor quality you can't even hold water in them. And that's socialism.
Right.
And everybody thinks it's a good idea, and you're not even allowed to criticize it. The people that would criticize it and say, "Wait a minute, if we all quit farming, if we all start doing this, who's gonna grow the crops? How are we gonna eat?" If you said something like that, you were called a rightist, and they'd lock you up. So you couldn't even voice common sense opposition to these asinine policies. It was absolutely insane. And you think about the kids that were following Bernie, and they're on that same level, that they would quit farming and melt down the silverware out of their parents' silverware drawer to make a pot that doesn't hold water, because Bernie told them to do it. And that's exactly where their common sense level is, if they think that socialism is going to work.
See that is so scary. Oh, man. I vaguely remember hearing about that in school, back eons ago.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. That's where we're headed now. I mean, it's getting to the point where if you try to speak out or you try to do things, they're labeling us as internal terrorists or, the crazy right-wingers, and it's all biased. I've been watching the mainstream media, and it's all about conservative values. There's very little Republican ideology. Anything about Trump is all bad. Anything about Hillary is 90% good. But what are the Republicans trying to do? It's all being swayed to that direction. And I've been really noticing a big difference on that one.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Katie Armor offers affordable body armor, including level 3 trauma plates made of AR-500 steel. They can endure multiple rounds from pistols and rifles up to 7.62 NATO. Order today from katiearmor.com. That's CATI armor.com. In the new book, EMP, The End of the Grid as We Know It, by Cal Wilson, America is hit by several simultaneous EMP attacks, and the country becomes a wasteland. Jim Burkett is on a business trip when it happens. Will he make it home to his family? Buy your copy from Amazon.com and find out today.
Get prepared before disaster strikes. PrepperRecon.com offers MOLLE-compatible individual first aid kits for your home, auto, or bug-out bag. These kits have everything you need to address a traumatic injury, including an Israeli battle dressing, quick clot, EMT shears, suture kit, steri-strips, tourniquet, tough strip bandages, and so much more. Kits are available in OD Green, Coyote, Black, and ACU. $99 includes shipping. Go to PrepperRecon.com and click the Store tab at the top of the home page. Order today before it's too late.
The rallies, the Trump rallies, and where the supporters were just brutally attacked, and in some cities where in some of the more I can't remember which city it was one of them, and I think it was in California, where the police chief basically told his men to just stand down, and you see the police lined up.
San Jose.
Yeah, San Jose. And you see the protesters just beating this Trump supporters right in front of the police, and nothing's being done for it. So she's absolutely abandoned the ideology of law and order. We've seen that over and over with the emails and with the theft by the Clinton Foundation, and you know, that we don't even have to start speculating about all the murders where, you know, your life expectancy, if you were any type of a Clinton aide, you know, I would imagine your life insurance rates are through the roof. They probably won't take you. It's probably, if you're like a high wire act that crosses the Grand Canyon with no net, you can probably get insurance cheaper for life insurance than if you're a Hillary aide.
Oh, no kidding.
Or you work for the Clinton Foundation, because, you know, just bad stuff happens to those people. Now, you mentioned, Julie, you mentioned that.
Coincidence.
You mentioned, Julie, that, you know, you think someday the stock market's not going to bounce back. And 2008, it bounced back because we doubled the money supply. M2, they quit tracking M3, but the M2 money supply was, I think it was 10 trillion in 2008, and it's 20 trillion now. And of course, the debt is also very, very close to having doubled as well. And we're at, like we talked about at the beginning of the program, interest rates are at zero. So we've got no ammunition for the next pullback, and we're way overdue for a pullback. You know, the market's been going straight up since 2009 with no real checks. I mean, last August we had a 1,000-point drop in one day. I think it was last August 24th. And of course, when you turned on CNBC, they had brought Jim Cramer, who was the evening show. They brought him in the morning with the other guy that does the regular morning show on CNBC, and they're talking about 1,000-point market crash, saying this is a normal buying opportunity. So they bring in the talking heads to pump up this false sense of confidence. You know, this is like something from Mao's China, you know, where you've got the talking head sitting there telling you 1,000-point drop is a normal buying opportunity and a healthy correction. It's an unprecedented implosion of confidence, yet they somehow got in there and propped it up. And of course, you know, it's not conspiracy theory. It's you know, it's well-known fact that we have the plunge protection team, which is, you know, members of the Fed and the Treasury, that it can go in and buy, highly leveraged derivatives of stocks that push the entire market up. So, and when you can print your own money, when you've got your own printing press, you know, you've got a lot of things that you can do like that. So it got propped up then, and we haven't really had any major hiccups since that. But we don't know when the next one is, and we don't know when the next time people are going to say, "I don't care what Jim Cramer tells me. I don't think this is a normal buying opportunity. I'm cashing all my chips in, and I'm getting out."
Yeah. Well, I've tried to get my dad to do that, and he won't do it. He's, the investors, all the places that you invest money, they say, "Oh, no, it'll come back. It's normal. It's blah, blah, blah." And I do not understand how some of us can see this and read this and not say, "Oh, this is all conspiracy," and others can just totally not see it. I mean, the last two falls, I predicted to my dad that he was going to lose money and he needed to get them out. Usually I used to listen to NPR, and he's, "Oh, no. And he lost 50% of his stock, at least 50%. And he turned gray the first time, and the second time his hair fell out. And now he's 80 years old, and he can't take another one. He says, "Well, it'll come back again," but he's 80. What good is it going to do if it's a 5-year comeback when you're 80? The whole thing bothers me, and that half of these people are not awake, and that's what I wonder. And that's one of the reasons we started this. John begging.
We have a caller.
One reason. Somebody told me to come and talk because
go ahead,
I
caller.
feel like, we need to get it out
You didn't think
there.
I was just going to abandon you, did you?
I did.
Oh, no.
I thought you were going to
no.
just skedaddle for the whole thing.
No, actually, to be
Because this is
perfectly
probably-
honest, with such an awesome guest speaker, I was going to go ahead and just sit in the back and bask in the glory of his knowledge.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. Well, that's what I'm doing.
In the land of the blind, the man with one eye is king, huh?
Exactly.
No, it's just, see, I've known Prepper, and he probably doesn't know this because, it's not like we're having Christmas card exchange or anything, but I've known him for quite some time. Started out way back when I was still Johnson following him, when he was just had his own little thing going, and kind of watched him come to this rising star. So basically, I think it's really awesome he's here. Thank you so much for being on our little show.
Oh, well, thank you
Yeah,
so much for having me. It's really an honor to be on Ladies of the Watch.
Oh.
I have a question.
Yeah,
I have
all
a
four of
question.
you. Are
I
you
have a
guys
question.
getting this? Go.
My question
Yeah,
is
we're really, really small right now, but this is an absolutely great topic because this is one that I know very, very little about. I can prep on a budget, but the financial part of this is fascinating. So I'll let you guys keep going.
I have got a question. And my question is this. Does the Fed have any more ammunition left to prop up the economy, or are they out of ammunition? Do they have one bullet left they can do, or what's the status of the Fed? Are they able to do anything at all to stave off another?
Well, they still have a printing press. And, as long
only
as they
bullet?
can get green ink they don't even need the ink and the paper anymore because they can just enter it into a computer. So as
Right.
long as people will keep taking dollars, they can keep propping it up. At the same time, the dollar is going to keep devaluing because every time you print another dollar, this is why they really frown upon counterfeiting, is because if you have a press in your basement and you print up $1 million, you've just devalued everybody else's money. Because now you've got an extra $1 million chasing around the same amount of goods and services that were in the economy. So that's not fair to everybody else that doesn't have a press, unless you're the government. So they've got a press, so they can do that, and they can keep doing it until people won't accept that the dollar's payment anymore. And then when that day comes, then we're going to have a big reckoning, and that's going to be really bad. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of folks are preparing for because as we're seeing in Venezuela, when you don't have a functioning currency, things can get really, really nasty. And the folks, their neighbors in Argentina, they've had to deal with that. In the 90s, Russia had to deal with that. In the 30s, Germany had to deal with that. Zimbabwe had to deal with that. I've got a piece of paper. It's an official Zimbabwe banknote, and it's $50 trillion. And it won't buy you a stick of bubble gum.
What, a quarter?
It won't even buy you a stick of bubble gum.
Does anybody remember what happened in the 70s?
Yeah, we just about went off the deep end in the 70s, and fortunately, Henry Kissinger, who's a member of the CFR, the Bilderberger Group, and the Trilateral Commission, was able to go over to the Saudis and convince them to denominate oil only in dollars and get the rest of the OPEC to go along with that. And so we've had this sort of petrodollar ever since then. And of course,
are you talking about the reserve currency?
We're talking about the U.S. dollar.
What he's talking about is the beginning of OPEC. He's talking about the beginning of OPEC and when we became attached at the hip to Middle East and their oil.
Yeah.
Until the 70s crunch. And to be perfectly honest, if you really want to do some research, there really wasn't a run on oil. We had natural reserves here that could have lasted still to this day. We chose not to use them because they wanted to go ahead and expand economically. But what happened with that is that when we attached ourselves to OPEC, that's when we made millionaires and billionaires and even, trillionaires out of our Saudi Arabian ties and out of a lot of the other Middle Eastern, and that's when we started looking at them and started dabbling politically over there. That's because, hey, that's our oil. We're going to go ahead and play with it.
Because I had heard that was when the U.S. dollar became the world's reserve currency during that time.
It became the world's reserve currency in the 40s in the Bretton Woods Agreement after World War II, when they said, okay, we're gonna all U.S. currency. It's gonna for world reserve currency. It's a dollar is going to mean a dollar's worth of gold. And then in the late 60s, Charles de Gaulle did a little math on the back of a napkin and said, "There's no way that the Americans actually have as much gold as all the dollars they're putting out. I don't trust them. I'm cashing in all these dollars that we're holding for as a reserve currency, and I want France's gold back." And so when they did that, started a run on the gold reserves in America, and Nixon closed the window in the 70s and said, "Well, that's it. We're not going to keep doing this. We're not going to keep giving you $1 worth of gold for $1 worth of paper. But just know that it's worth it, and we've got it." And nobody trusted them, and then that's when we started seeing hyperinflation. And then that's when Kissinger had to step in, cut the deal with the Saudis to prop up the dollar with oil. But it's still held that reserve currency status.
Okay.
But now nobody really wants to do that anymore because, everybody's seeing that the gig's up and, everybody's wanting to start moving closer to the SDR, the special drawing rights, which is the IMF's currency that derives its value from a basket of the other world currencies. So, the dollar's weighted in there, and then the euro's weighted in there, and then Russia's currencies, China's currency, everybody else's currencies weighted into that basket for the SDR.
Okay. Well, see, that's good information.
Absolutely. Well, and I heard through the grapevine that there won't be any more buyouts.
Bailouts or buyouts?
Buyouts.
Buyouts.
If the banks go, and I can't get, that is not something that I can back up with proof. But it was in one of our chat rooms, and people were talking about that, and they said they will not be able to buy out again if it does go down. And that's what pulled us out of the last one. And I don't know if that's true. Like I say, this is kind of a new field for me. But so if they don't pull out, and China's is it a yuan? Yen?
Yuan.
Goes, yuan.
Yeah, that's right, yuan.
Goes into, a major market, then what does that do to our dollar?
Yeah, they would never. I don't think that they're in any rush to have the yuan become the world reserve currency, because then that it gets strong, and then it makes it harder for them to import their cheap junk, to export their cheap junk. And I'm trying, and just to, I want to clarify. What are you talking about? Buyouts? Are you talking about buying U.S. debt when it's
banks and whatever?
bailing out the banks? Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, the Fed's got a printing press, so they can kind of keep doing that trick until people decide that they're not going to take the dollar anymore, or it becomes devalued to the point that it's worthless. The dollar's lost, I think 97% of its value since we went off the gold standard. Out of that 3% that's left, it could lose another 90%. It could lose 90% of that 3%, over another 100 years. If it can keep being this leaky sieve that they've got, that to where it's just dripping value slowly over time, that's fine. But when you double the money supply, you cut the value in half in a very short period of time. And so that's the types of things that cause severe disruptions and end up with the type of environment that you've got in Venezuela right now, or what you saw in Argentina in 2000 or Russia in the 90s.
Okay. Well, you also have at this point a severe reduction in our credit rating globally as well.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the first time since the 30s that we've lost to AAA.
Yeah. Yeah. So nobody else trusts us anymore. So that puts us, if a guy walks off a cliff, and it's 100-foot cliff, that first 99 feet, nothing catastrophic happens, but it's that last foot that gets you.
Deceleration trauma.
Yeah. So, we're off the cliff. We're off the cliff, but what we got to figure out is, are we closer to 99 feet up in the air and falling, or are we closer to that last foot? And, and it's just whenever we hit that last foot that we're going to need to brace for impact. That's the end of the first half of my guest appearance on Ladies of the Watch. Tune in next week for the rest of the show.
After a massive wave of disappearances, 26-year-old CIA analyst Everett Carroll finally believes what he's been told about the biblical prophecy of the rapture. Global currencies have collapsed, famine and plague have claimed the lives of millions, and the world has crumbled into chaos. 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 vials of God's wrath are about to be poured out upon the earth, and woe to the inhabitants thereof. Buy your copy of The Days of Elijah, Book 1, Apocalypse, by best-selling author Mark Goodwin, in paperback or Kindle edition from Amazon.com today.